That is a very naked Robin Williams jumping into a pool. World's Greatest Dad, released in 2009, and is directed by Bobcat Goldthwait, who has also directed such films like Shakes the Clown, Sleeping Dogs Lie, Call Me Lucky, and Willow Creek. And this film is starring Robin Williams, Daryl Sabera, Alexi Gilmore, Evan Martin, Lorraine Nicholson, Henry Simmons, and Jeff Pearson. And the reason why we're talking about World's Greatest Dad today is because it was a PayPal recommendation and donation from one of my consistent contributors on this channel, James Philbry. Thank you very much for the recommendation. I had never heard of this film before, but I mean, I love Robin Williams, and I had a feeling that this was going to be towards the latter end of Robin Williams' life, so I tried to stay away from those films just because, but like personally, I could tell that Robin was in a state of depression within those movies, and just the comedy, his energy didn't seem the same as I know him from the 90s and the early 2000s. But I am glad that you recommended it because I just like seeing Robin Williams. I miss that actor like crazy because no matter what film it was, he always gave a tremendous performance. Whether he made me laugh, he made me cry, whatever. He was a tremendous actor, and God, he's one of the actors that I miss like crazy. And I am going to preface this before I get into my review and my plot synopsis that I am going to talk about a major spoiler that happens midway through this film because it's the catalyst for really what happens in this movie. I'm not sure if they covered it in the trailer or not, but it's something that I do need to talk about. So if you don't want to be spoiled for anything, because I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, if you don't want to be spoiled for anything, go watch this movie. It is free on HBO Max. Check it out over there. Come back and check out this review. Robin Williams plays Lance Clayton, who is an English teacher at a high school, but has dreams and aspirations of being a famous writer, but has been turned down by every publishing company for every book that he's ever written. And also, Lance has to deal with his douchebag of a son, Kyle, who is obsessed with female genitalia and is not the brightest kid on the block. And during an accidental masturbating exercise, Mr. Clayton finds Kyle dead after suffocating himself while orgasming. So in an attempt to give his son some ending dignity in the last few minutes of his life, stages the scene as a typical suicide and even writes a suicide note for his son. However, the writing of this suicide note is getting the attention of every student and teacher in the school, and also famous TV personalities all throughout the country. So feeling the joy that something that Mr. Clayton, Lance, actually wrote that's getting published everywhere and people are talking about it in a positive light, he gets the urge to say like, oh, well, my son had a journal too. And he goes through a whole writing spree and writes an entire, journal book that he's trying to pass as his son's work, and everyone falls in love with it. Yeah, I can definitely see how this film could be considered to be like controversial or just really hard to watch because really, there's not a single good person in this movie. It is listed as a satirical black comedy drama film, which just encompasses so many different genres. But when you're talking about black comedy, that's usually when you try to make light of a serious situation or some type of tragedy, which I appreciate black comedy. It's kind of how I react to grief, and when I react to death that happens in my life, I try to find humor because that's my coping mechanism. It's really what black comedy is. It's a coping mechanism for a terrible tragedy that happens in someone's life. Of course, I say something like that, but then when grief and death happens to me, I had to put down my cat last month, which is I'm still dealing with the aftermath of that. I'm still not the same person that I was before we had to put her down. And I don't find jokes in that as well. But in other things, for other people's tragedies, if it affects me in some way, I try to alleviate the situation, because that's my coping mechanism. This is a weird-ass movie, though. Weird in that the situation that Lance gets himself into with writing and passing the writing off as his son's work, because his son, let's be honest, is very famous in the high school right now. So if we can capitalize on his name, put his name on something and get it out there, I mean, that kind of makes Lance a little famous, right? That's the best thing about this movie, is that it looks and examines at the exploitation of death, which no one ever talks about. When people see grief and when people see death, everyone gets sad and says, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know how you feel. But then after that goes along for a while, and especially if they're a famous celebrity, all of a sudden we get exploitation, and we get people dedicating things to that person, even though that person never partook in a baseball game before, or didn't like the people that's dedicating the thing to them. What's the first thing that we do as commenters when we hear that a famous celebrity has died? We blame the year and we make it about us. Ugh, 22 got another one. When is it gonna end? It's not. It's never going to end, because people are going to keep on dying. There's going to be a time in your life when the famous pop culture icons that you grew up watching, all of them are going to start dying because they're all around the same age. It's going to happen. That is what this movie is exploiting. It's exploiting the exploitation of death, and I think it's brilliant. Lance gets called on a talk show to talk about his son, and he's living his best life. He's in the limelight. The stagehand who is walking him to the stage and getting him into makeup, talking about how, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling grief, don't cover up your face. We want to see that. Make sure you tilt your chin up and look up. Don't look down, because we want to see your face. We want that grief to be shown on TV. We're exploiting your pain and grief. Come on! But it's also frustrating because this character, Kyle, is a major douchebag. He is not a good person. He's a terrible person. So to see all of these people in high school that never talked to him, that were never his friends, or hell, even people that he bullied, to see them say like, oh, I loved him, or he was my favorite, I miss him, he speaks to me in the afterlife. It drives me fucking crazy. The exploitation of death and grief is something that no one ever talks about, just because, it is death, and we all deal with death in our own separate ways. But there is an exploitation of death. There is that craving of attention, and that craving of, oh yes, be with me and take pity on me because, I suffer grief in my life. And it's okay to feel that. I don't want to make it seem like I'm belittling anyone that does that. It's totally fine. It's just when people play it off for so long and play it off like, oh no, I'm not wanting that, that's when it irritates me. And that's why I appreciate this movie a lot, is because it doesn't pull any punches, and it shows, kind of on an extreme end, it shows just that exploitation that all of us have when it comes to grief. It is very hard to watch, though, knowing how Robin Williams took his life. This was 2009, and I think he passed away in 2014, so 5 years later. I'm pretty sure that Williams died the same way that his character's son dies in this movie. So seeing that on screen, it was fucking jarring. When he walks in and sees it, he's just breaking down into tears. You don't hear him screaming because they drown all that out with a song, which is a nice little touch, and I like that choice within that serious scene. But gosh, seeing him looking at his son, just sitting there with that collar around his neck, I mean, like, I almost paused it and stopped and walk away, because that was hard. And you can tell that this is not the same Robin Williams that, I grew up with in the 90s, the funny Robin Williams, always putting on an act and always making people laugh. Hell, even in his serious work, he has moments of levity, and you can see energy and life behind him. But in these last years of his life, in this role, just looking at him, you don't see the same life that is behind his eyes. It's actually really sad seeing Robin Williams in this film playing this type of character, dealing with this type of situation. Because I don't want to say that this film, affected him in any way, but it's affecting me as an audience member, just knowing how his life ended up. It's jarring. The movie is very strange and deals with a couple of topics that are not going to be for everyone. There's a lot of hard subject matter in here, and yes, they try to dress it up in comedy and give a little light and levity to it, but I can definitely see someone watching this and not laughing at all, or not getting interested in it at all, or have it be triggering to them. I think it's a very interesting piece, though. I'm going to give World's Greatest Dad 3.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I am above average.
Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part of my videos, where I pick which movie I'm going to be watching next. And the next one, again, comes from another recommendation from James Philbree. He recommended the film Bad Words, which is a movie I remember seeing a lot of ads for when it was coming out and seeing the trailer a lot, but I've never seen this movie. I want to say, he had a bad experience in a spelling bee when he was a kid, but then has the chance to do it again as adult and then stomp everyone. I'm pretty sure that's what I remember from seeing the trailers. Not sure, though. But we'll check it out next time. So guys, have you seen World's Greatest Dad? What did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of Bad Words. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.